Hey, this is Walt from WaltInPA.com, and I've got another cigar video for you, another one of those first impressions reviews, where basically all I'm going to be doing is taking a look at a cigar for the very first time, giving you some generic brand information, a little bit of my opinion of the cigar as I progress through it, and then what I'll do is I'll take those notes and I'll apply it to an upcoming review. Basically, it's just a way to take the general note-taking that I do and put it in video format for you to watch and just get an impression of what I think about a particular cigar for the first time. And, excuse me, this particular cigar was one that kind of came by surprise. I was talking back and forth with one particular individual for the last couple of months. A lot of cigar-related stuff, a lot of daily discussion type of things. And just sort of out of the blue, they asked if I would mind if they sent me some cigars. And well, I never object to free cigars under most circumstances. So I said, of course. But you know, a word of caution. You know, I'm sort of backlogged, and I don't know if I can immediately get to whatever you send me. But they were nice enough to send them anyhow. And a few days went by. And I was coming home from work one day, and I had my hands loaded up. I was doing some side work, and I was bringing some parts home. And I had, you know, mail in one hand. I had some wood pieces in the other hand, and I'm sort of dragging them up the porch and around the corner. And there's this big box sitting on my porch. And the first thing I thought was, well, you know, this person either really overpacked that box, you know, tons and tons of padding for such a small shipment, or they're not from them, it's just something else. So as I get closer, I see some printing on the box, and I'm thinking, well, it's definitely not the person that I talked to, because they don't work for Davidoff. Why am I getting, or I should say, I had no idea that they worked for Davidoff. So I see Davidoff at Geneva on the box, and I'm kind of confused. At that point in time, I had no idea where these cigars came from, and I'm trying to go back in my mind. Who do I know from Davidoff? Did I meet someone at IPCPR? Did I meet a sales rep along the way? You know, why do I have cigars from Davidoff? You know, what is going on here? So I get into the house, and then I go back out. And I bring the box in, and it's sort of like a personal challenge. I have it sitting on the kitchen table, and I'm pacing back and forth. You know, what is going on? You know, who do I know from Davidoff? You know, I want to try to guess who I may have known and who sent them, because it's the shipping label just says Davidoff at Geneva. So finally, I give up. I can't think of who sent me these cigars. I don't know. I just don't know. So I open up the box, and sure enough, it's Davidoff stuff inside. Excuse me. So the cigar that I'm reviewing, or taking a first time look at, is one of the about 6 that were sent to me. Actually, I have everything else that was in the box. The cigars are just put away. But I have a Davidoff 6000. Let's see if I can get this thing to focus. So anyway, that white blur is actually the band, and I think there's too much light. I don't think it's going to focus. But at any rate, this is a Davidoff 6000. You've probably seen the band before. It's a very classy band, very minimalistic, big white band with gold trim in an oval pattern, and Davidoff in the middle. As you turn the band, there's Geneva on one side and the cigar information on the other, which is the 6000. Now the 6000 is it's a Robusto format. It's a 5x48. It's from the Dominican Republic. Now, just sort of reading directly from the website, it says that Davidoff's new 6000 was created specifically for those cigar smokers who enjoy a milder but aromatic smoke with the increasingly popular Robusto format. The mild and harmonious blend of tobaccos used in this cigar is keeping with the style of the Davidoff Milli series, and in combination with the somewhat larger gauge of the Robusto, promises a pleasurable, harmonious smoke for all lovers of lighter cigars. So reading that, I think it's safe to say that this is going to be a milder cigar. But also in that box, I got a couple other things that I thought were pretty cool. And that I've got a Davidoff cutter, the double guillotine. I'm sure you've seen. Oops. I'm sure you've seen these before. Just says Davidoff on the cutting surface. Some matches. They I typically wouldn't show you the matches, but I love getting wooden matches that are very long. So that's fantastic. I only have a couple of boxes of this type of match, and I really prefer them over like the small, tiny boxes from like Cigar.com. I have a Davidoff's DVD, which I watched probably the day after I got the information, and it's very interesting. I was surprised. Actually, it prompted me to look at some of the other cigar DVDs that are out there. I watched the CAO Seed to Soul DVD through YouTube, and I'm on the lookout for the Fuente DVD. It's another one I want to see. And I've seen the Torcedor video. I don't remember what it's called. I think Brian did a write-up on the Stogie review, which was also very informative, but it was very short. It was like 6 minutes. And I've got an Avo ashtray, which I've sort of been not really complaining on Twitter, but dropping hints that I could really use more ashtrays, especially for manufacturers, because it's tough to take a picture of a cigar and use some sort of backdrop. If like this Camacho picture I did, I think what was it? I don't remember which Camacho cigar it was, but I didn't have any sort of swag to go along with the cigar to create some sort of flowing backdrop. So I used the back of I think it was a Cigar Press magazine that had Christian's picture on it smoking a cigar, and it just didn't go well. And when I get stuff like this, it's awesome because I can put the cigar inside in the ashtray that sort of flows and belongs. This is an Avo ashtray, but Davidoff and Avo go together. So it's kind of cool to have extra little things to do that, and I sort of collect the ashtrays for whatever reason. I think I have 6 or 8 porcelain ashtrays aside from the stinky ashtray that I use all the time, and I just like taking pictures with porcelain ashtrays. I just think they look better. But that's the goodie box that I got from Davidoff, and sure enough, inside the box there was a note from this person that I've been talking to back and forth, and I just had no idea they worked for Davidoff. It was kind of surprising and one of those you got me moments, but it was pretty cool. So I've got I'm going to be smoking a Davidoff Millennium 6000 for the very first time. I've had Davidoffs before. I've never had the 6000. The couple that I've had were the Maduro. My local cigar shop got some samples in of the Maduro, and he was kind enough to give me 1 or 2. I've had those, and I think I may have had a Xeno Platinum, but I'm very unfamiliar with the line. So let's get started. There's a little bit of resistance to it. It's not bad. Actually, looks like there's some binder flapped over. If I can get the rest of that off, I think maybe it'll draw better. Yep, sure enough, user error. Should draw much better now. And it does. Now the draw is free. It's got sort of a sweet taste to it. One of the things I should probably notice, or I should probably mention, is that I tried, the draw was firm, and I noticed there was some binder flapped over. I don't cut very much off the end of my cigar. I'm using scissors, and if you watch the how to use scissors video that I did, you'll see that I'm taking virtually nothing off the end of the cigar. I'm just paring and shaping, and sometimes when these are rolled, the binder is twisted and tucked and rolled around so that the cap can be applied. And sometimes I cut through the cap and I've still got that sort of wad of binder under there, and it's not always apparent. In this case, I just happened to notice it looking at it a little closer, and taking that away, and it frees the draw right up. So if you ever see me go back and try to fix something and all of a sudden the draw is better, it's most likely because that binder was wrapped over and I didn't get all the way through it. So the pre-light draw is good. It's got a little bit of a sweet taste to it. As far as the aesthetics of the cigar, there is one medium-sized vein that sort of rolls around the backside of the cigar. In the middle of that vein, at the midpoint, it's very progressed. It's kind of ugly. It's a little wrinkled. But aside from that, there are no visual flaws. It looks like the seam that spirals down the cigar is very clean. There's no stutter marks, hesitation marks, anything like that. It's nice and flat. It's not lifting anywhere. The cap seems to be a little bit darker than the rest of the cigar, which isn't totally surprising. It's typically a piece of scrap leaf, whether it's from the actual wrapper or from another piece of wrapper leaf that was sort of sitting aside. So a little color variation there I don't typically concern myself with. It looks like a triple cap. I can see 3 defined seams, and all in all, the cigar looks good. And one of the things that I'm really picky about is the way the band slides. In this case, it's not glued to the wrapper. There's virtually no concern of any wrapper damage happening when it comes time to take that band off. So that's one of the things that I've been looking at. So there is the general information about the cigar. I should probably pinch it real quick. Feels nice and firm, evenly packed with tobacco. Looking at the foot, there's a little bit of space in the filler. It's not really jam-packed. One of the reasons I look at that is because I was sitting through a seminar with Christian Roa at Cigars International, and one of the things he mentioned was, if you look at the foot of his cigars, if it looks like there's space, it should draw fine before you even cut the end. If it looks like it's really packed tight, it's probably going to be the same way and barely draw. So ever since then, I've been keeping an eye on the foot, and it seems to always play out. If there's space at the foot, it draws well. If it looks like it's sort of all the tobacco is crushed, then the draw usually sucks. So there you have it. So I'm going to get my cigar lit, and then I'll be right back. We'll jump into the first third and see how it goes. So sit tight. Alright, well, welcome back. I'm pretty much through the first third of my Davidoff 6000. I know inadvertently in the first segment I mentioned Millennium. It's Millie, that's 1000 series, not Millennium. Totally different cigar. And those cigars, from what I understand, have a secondary band. So that was my slip up. This is 6000, not a Millennium. So at any rate, a little bit more about the cigar. I hopped on to Famous's website just to get some pricing information on the stick. And well, let's just say that if you were walking through your local cigar shop and you happen to see a box of Davidoff 6000s up on the shelf and there were no price tag, if you felt compelled to go outside and ask the tobacconist how much they were, chances are they were too much, or chances are you couldn't afford them, or you couldn't afford to buy them on a regular basis. Now, Famous is a discounter. They're an online retailer, lower overhead than your local cigar shop, thus they can take less of a profit margin and still make a lot of money. So their prices are generally a little bit lower. Now, I'm not sure how Davidoff works, whether their contracts say that everyone more or less has the same price so that the brand doesn't get hurt by discounting, or how that works exactly. But the price for a box of 25 Davidoff 6000s on Famous is $351.99. If you divide that out by 25 cigars, you get about 14 bucks a stick. Now, as I learned a couple of weeks ago, if you divide out the box price by the number of cigars in it, you can be way off what MSRP is. Now, I didn't look up single stick MSRP, but I would assume that it's probably more than $14, or at least more than the $14 that I'm getting by dividing out the box price by the number of sticks within the box. So these Davidoff 6000s are not for the budget-friendly smoker. They are definitely pricey. Now, as far as the smoking characteristics, or my opinion of the cigar thus far, The ash is a little flaky. There has been more than one occasion where sort of just breathing in the general direction of the cigar has floated off a few pieces of ash, and they've landed on both keyboards actually, and it's a little messy. The ash got to about an inch long. I gave it a couple gentle taps over the ashtray. It didn't pop off, so I just picked it up and started smoking again, and sort of just dropped in front of me. Now, tapping it over the ashtray may have weakened it a little bit, but it gave me the impression that at about an inch, you need to remove that ash. Now, since doing that, I've got a nice flat, straight burn. There's not really a conical shape, which generally I get that with a cigar that has a lot of Ligero in it. This one being mild and very aromatic, I wouldn't suspect it has very much, if any, Ligero in it. It's probably mostly seco and more aromatic smoke and less of the powerful stuff. The body is mild. It's very aromatic. The finish is smooth. It's creamy on the palate. It's very easy. There is no aggressive bite to this cigar at all. It's very smooth. The flavor profile is nice. It's mildly sweet. It's got just a sort of a generic Dominican tobacco flavor to it, which makes up the core. Once that sort of generic flavor begins to subside, I get more of a sweetness, a little bit of a nutty flavor, a little bit of a cedar flavor. So there's a lot going on. The cigar is interesting to start with. It's smoking pretty well. The burn line has been fairly straight, a little thick at times. The ash a little flaky, about medium gray in color, fairly compacted, a little bit of flaking. So all in all, it's doing pretty well. The flavors are nice. The way the cigar is burning is above average, I would say, and the only really points being docked there would be the flaking ash. The draw is good. There's a little bit of resistance to it, but I'm getting a lot of smoke, a lot of dense smoke, easy to get through the sinuses, sort of lingers in the room a little bit. The room aroma is very pleasant. I don't, it's really tough to say. This cigar wouldn't be offensive to a non-smoker because, I'm sitting in a room marinating in my own smoke, so it's very difficult for me to say, someone could walk in here right now and be okay with it. For me, it's mild. It's pleasant. I don't think it would be offensive. I certainly wouldn't walk into a room and say, "Oh, that cigar really stinks." There are some cigars that I've had that experience with, but this one is pleasant. It's mild. I've got sort of a filter going on, so it's not collecting to the point where it's going to irritate my eyes or anything like that. It's very comfortable. I'm not like seeing a haze or anything. So it's doing good. I don't want to overanalyze, the smoke in the room and how it would present itself to a non-smoker or a smoker or whatever the case may be. But all in all, it's going well. I was kind of startled by the price. I didn't realize they were that expensive. I thought they were like $10, $11, maybe $12, but 14 and up is getting up there quite a bit. Now I don't know how this one compares with the Millennium and the other Xeno lines. So I don't know whether this is the top of the price scale, or if this is sort of in the middle or at the low end, or whatever the case may be. Maybe I'll look into that a little bit more. But so far, it's been a great morning cigar. It has replaced my for today. It has replaced my Oliva Connecticut, and I'm drinking it with a cup of Black Dog coffee. It's Panama Berlina Estates. It's going very well with it. So all in all, I'm pretty happy. So sit tight. I'm going to take another break. I'll be back. We'll take a look at the second third, and I'll continue my video notes, and you can just keep on watching. So sit tight. Alright, well, welcome back. I'm a little bit further along than I would like to be in the second third. I'm actually probably along the final third at this point. And, but before I get to talking about the cigar, I mentioned that I watched this Xeno Davidoff CD that Davidoff sent me. And actually, it just sitting on top of some paperwork. I had a book that I recently used as a prop. Now, I read this a couple months ago. It's the Connoisseur's Guide to the Connoisseur's Book of the Cigar by Xeno Davidoff. Now, this was, I think this was translated to English in the 60s. So I think it was written before that. Now, by watching the DVD and reading the book, I have a general idea of what the purpose of the Davidoff cigar is, and that is to be the highest of high quality. Perfection is what Davidoff is striving for here. Now, the DVD is far more interesting than the book. And the reason I say that is because the book is sort of stuck in the past. Regardless of the hobby, you get a perception of what things should be, and as technology or time passes, you get to see sort of errors in your ways. Now, in the book, excuse me, in the book, there's a lot of talk about how you should size your cigar to your personality type. So, if I was 6 feet tall and very thin, or 6'5", very thin, because of my size, my stature, my outlook, I should be smoking something like a Lancero. It suits me. The proportions of the cigar match me. If I were 4 feet tall and jumbo, I should go for something like a nub, 4x60. Again, sizing up the cigar with my proportions. That's sort of long gone. People smoke what they are comfortable smoking. They're not trying to match the proportions of a cigar to the proportions of themselves. There's also some information in the book that says that the darker the cigar, the stronger the cigar. And that's one of the pet peeves of mine. I can't stand it when I hear someone say, oh, it's a very light golden Connecticut. It should be very mild and very smooth. But there are a number of cigars out there that are very light in color, and they have a very bold flavor. Excuse me. Like, for instance, if I were to take two cigars, take the bands off, and show them to you. One was a Rosado, fairly light, in comparison to this other one in my hand. It was a Connecticut Broadleaf Maduro. Dark. Nice and dark. Now, which one would you choose? Do you want the Maduro first thing in the morning, or do you want the lighter Rosado? Which would you choose? In your mind, if lighter means lighter or weaker, you're going to take the Rosado. It's lighter than the Maduro. But in this case, if you were to take the Rosado, at least I think it's a Rosado. Anyway, if you were to take the lighter cigar, you'd be smoking an Opus X first thing in the morning. If you take the darker cigar, you'd be smoking an Oliva G Maduro. Which one is lighter? Well, obviously, because of the the notoriety or the buzz behind the Opus X, that it is supposed to be over the top, very, very full-bodied, very powerful cigar. Obviously, it's much more than the G Maduro. So in that case, you'd be smoking the much stronger cigar first thing in the morning. So things don't work that way anymore. And they don't always work that way. Just because a cigar is lighter than another one doesn't mean that it's milder. And in this book, it progresses and tells you, you should start out with a light cigar, and as the day goes on, you smoke darker cigars because they're stronger, or they're more full-bodied, more full-flavored, whatever the case may be. So there are thoughts in this book that sort of have changed or evolved over the years, but I still get the gist of Davidoff's perception of cigars. He wants perfection. He wants fantastic, awesome cigars, and that's very clear reading the book, watching the DVD, seeing the pricing, and even smoking a cigar. It's a very high quality cigar. At this point, the body is still mild. It's very, very aromatic, very flavorful. And what I mean by light body is that it doesn't have that heavy feel, that mouth feel. It doesn't leave like a thick film on your mouth, in your throat, on your tongue. That is what I necessarily translate into body. If I was having difficulty talking, where it felt like sort of gargled molasses, and I had this really thick film going on, that I would consider ultra high body. This is very light. There's virtually no lingering mouthfeel. The finish is smooth. It's beginning to move backwards a little bit. It's getting a little drier. It's still mildly creamy, but it's not quite what it was earlier on. And the flavor profile hasn't changed up very much. It's very consistent. I'm still getting a rich sort of Dominican tobacco flavor. I'm getting some nutty flavors, a little bit of cedar, and that's about it. No pepper through the sinus, no spice, no tingling or just sort of an irritated sensation. The smoke is very smooth, especially through the sinuses. There's really nothing that's aggressive about it. It's a very laid back and easygoing cigar. The burning characteristics are pretty good. It seems to be burning on par for a cigar of this size. Like I mentioned in the Short Ashes reviews, when I do these first impressions, I really don't look at the clock. I'm not making much in terms of notes anymore because, well, I'm talking to the camera. When I'm editing the video, I will be watching myself again. Therefore, I don't need to write this stuff down. I'll just type it out as I hear myself say it. So it makes things a little bit easier in that regard. The cigar's going very well. Burn line is a little uneven. It's not so heavy as it was before, as far as the being wide and thick. It's not thin, but it's moderate or medium. The volume of smoke is good. I'm still getting a lot of smoke, very dense, easy to get through the sinuses, and it just seems very aromatic, very flavorful, and very enjoyable. So that's what I've got for the second third. So I'll be back in just a few minutes. We'll touch on the final third. I'll wrap up the cigar and I'll let you be on your way. So sit tight. Alright, well, I am back, and it's about time to wrap up my Davidoff 6000. Practically through the final third. Took the band off very easily. It's got sort of like a gloss coat on it, and it just separated very easy with very minimal damage to the band, which is great because, as I mentioned in an earlier video, I use these bands for like a collage of some sort at a later date, and I'll be able to save this one. Now, the only downside to white bands, whether or not it really makes a difference to you, is just like a white car, it doesn't take much for it to look filthy. In this case, there's just a little bit of excess pectin on the visible side of the band, so it looked a little dirty, but it just comes with the territory. That's what you get with white bands. As far as the cigar goes, the body is still fairly mild. It's very aromatic. It's very flavorful. It's enjoyable. The finish got a little bit drier. It's still not dry, but it's not nearly as creamy as it was initially. The flavors are pretty much consistent. I haven't seen any variation. I'm getting a nutty flavor, a little bit of a leathery flavor, and some cedar. Now the leathery flavor is the only really new flavor, and it's not very dominant. It's fairly light, and the core flavor is just that of well-aged, rich Dominican tobacco. And really, there's not a whole lot to say about the cigar because it's been so consistent. The burn line is fairly straight. It's even. It's the ash is still flaking a little bit here and there. The draw is fantastic. I'm getting a good volume of smoke. It's nice and dense. The resting smoke is light. The aroma of the room aroma is pleasant. It's mild, and all in all, I enjoyed the cigar. I thought it was very good. But as far as would I buy this cigar again, or would I? What would the case be if I walked into my local shop and all of a sudden he had a variety of Davidoffs on the shelf, and sort of in the middle with the light pointing down on it was the Davidoff 6000? Would I pick it up? And I don't know. I have to say, in most circumstances, I would not pick it up. Not because I didn't enjoy it, but because it's so expensive. The cigars I generally buy are about a third the price of this one, at around $14-15, somewhere in there. I'm usually picking up $4 to $5 cigars on a day-to-day basis, or on an average trip to the cigar shop. I'm spending $4 to $5 per cigar. So this one is way above and beyond what I normally buy, or what I normally pay for a cigar. I thought it was good. I prefer Nicaraguan tobacco. I like a little bit of that zing, a little bit more of an aggressive cigar. The flavor is just different. As I mentioned in the cigar, it tastes like Dominican tobacco. And I'm a firm believer in that each region has this own sort of generic taste. Dominican cigars traditionally taste a certain way. Honduran cigars taste another, and Nicaraguan cigars taste yet another way. So this cigar definitely tastes different than, you know, a cigar that I traditionally smoke, which is like a Nicaraguan, whether it be an Oliva Connecticut or a Perdomo Habano Connecticut, something like that, or the Perdomo Reserve Champagne. This is Dominican versus Nicaraguan. I prefer the Nicaraguan. It's not to say that this was bad. I thought it was very good, but just in my mind, I don't see it being worth $14. I thought it was very smooth, very complex, but again, it's out of my price range. And if I had, I don't know, if I got a monster raise tomorrow, and all of a sudden I could afford to spend $14 like I do $4, maybe I'd pick these up a little bit more often. But I just think that I can get the same level of enjoyment out of a different cigar that's much less expensive than I will out of a $14 cigar in this case. I thought it was good, but again, it's very expensive, and to me the value is not there. It doesn't taste like a $14 cigar. I can get the same level of enjoyment out of a cigar that's much less, you know, in price. So there you have it. This video is run entirely too long, so I don't want to go babbling and go on a tangent anymore. So there is my first impression look on the Davidoff 6000. Because I did this one, I'm going to have to look out and find another 6000, so at least I can do a full-blown review. Actually, I'd like to get 2 more, but at that price, I'm not going to be eagerly looking for them, you know. So keep an eye out on StogieReview.com for the review of the Davidoff 6000. You know, as soon as I can find them locally or get my hands on some. And, you know, we'll take it from there. So, thanks for watching, and until next time, happy smoking.